It's the Weege Show. Welcome to my beautiful, sparkling office. I got doors for my Jeep here. I got an exercise bike that you're supposed to be able to use a laptop while riding it. And of course, homage to the greatest Supercross race ever. There is Jeff Ward winning the 1990 Atlanta Supercross. I think Davey Coombs took that photo. Good job, Wardy. Well, guess what? We can start making racing memories again because Supercross is really back. And I don't mean rumored, I don't mean talked about, I mean it's actually going to happen. They have announced it. Last Thursday, Monster Energy Supercross said we're in for 7 races in 3 weeks in Salt Lake City, Utah at Rice-Eccles Stadium. Now, a lot of details, a lot of ins and outs have come to light. You did not probably hear about Salt Lake City being one of the front runners to hold Supercross. For the most part, we heard Glendale, Arizona was going to be the place to race. Also, St. Louis and Houston, I think, were on the docket as plans B and C. So how did plan D, Salt Lake City, come to be? This is what I think happened. Utah was willing to honor that May 31st date. However, everyone coming into the state will have to take a COVID-19 test more than 48 hours before the race date. And I think some of the other states were not going to require that, but as the race date began to get closer, I think all those states decided we might also require the coronavirus testing. And at that point, if they're all going to require the testing, you might as well go to the place that is going to allow the racing to happen for sure on the date that you need it to happen. That's just what I've heard. I can't guarantee it, but I do know this. Utah loves Supercross. They like to call themselves the state of sport, so it's a pretty good reason to have a race there. Plus, it is West Coast based, so the teams, I think it's an 8-hour drive from California, could conceivably drive and not fly there, which certainly should reduce some of the risk. But again, I can't emphasize enough that you do have to get tested before you enter the state. Now, they're not going to completely lock everyone down. There were rumors of quarantine hotels and things like that. That's not going to be the case. You can use different hotels. You could stay in your motorhome. You can even rent a house. But you cannot leave the state. If you do, you need to get tested again and allow another 48-hour grace period to get the test result. And this is the catch. To get 7 races in 3 weeks, you have to race twice a week. They're going to race on Sundays and Wednesdays. So there's really not a lot of time to leave, come back, get tested, and wait 48 hours. I've talked to a few people about this. It doesn't seem to be as much of an obstacle as I thought. Racing twice in a week is going to give most of the riders and teams the amount of riding that they want. Most will tell you they really only ride 3 days in a week anyway, a race day and 2 days during the week. So if they could maybe find even one practice day, one time, that'll be enough to replicate most of the riding they normally do. A lot of them are also saying, look, we had already raced 10 rounds of Supercross. I've been riding Supercross again back home. Missing a day or two of Supercross type riding while we're in Utah for 3 weeks isn't going to make that big of a difference. Here's where it will make a difference. This gets the economic engine of this industry rolling, and that's really the most important part. What you probably haven't heard a lot about in front of the scenes during this shutdown is how it has affected riders and teams from a sponsor and income perspective. There are certain sponsors that have simply stopped paying, or there are sponsors that are withholding pay until the races come back. And the fear is the longer this goes, the harder it's going to be for them to recoup a lot of those payments. So although it looks like a factory rider could just sit at home and continue to collect the checks in his mailbox every couple of weeks, it wouldn't actually work that way forever. And I've equated this whole thing to a shoulder injury. Where the doctors tell you if you dislocate your shoulder, it's not often how bad the dislocation was, it's how long was that shoulder out. That ultimately determines how quickly you can recover from that injury. The longer this goes on, without any money coming in, any money going out, anyone getting paid, the harder it's going to be to just snap everything back into place the way it was. So Supercross getting started May 31st. That's not super fast, but it's faster than it looked like it was going to be for a while. So I think that's going to be a huge advantage to unlocking some of the funding again for these teams and these riders. I have heard some people saying racing twice in a week. Did the riders weigh in on this? Did the teams weigh in on this? Look, man, it's not that big of a hardship. They're looking to get paid. And if these races don't come back, they might not. Racers need to race to make a living. We take it for granted because we don't even cancel races in this sport for bad weather, that the racing is always going to happen. But we have learned quite quickly what would happen if it stopped. And as soon as Feld, the producers of Supercross, started having meetings with the teams, almost immediately the teams were saying, please, 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 let us get all 17 rounds in. So these teams are not racing against their will. And on the sacrifice part, Feld cannot have fans at these events. There's no way you can social distance with fans. They are limited, from what I've heard, to 900 people. And that includes their staff, the people that would be needed to run the stadium, media people like myself, and of course the riders and teams and everything that come along with that. So there won't be fans in attendance, and Feld has been upfront. Had a meeting with Dave Prater, Senior Director of Operations, two-wheel for Feld. On Friday, he met with the reporters and said, look, ticket revenue is our #1 revenue source. Now, obviously, they're not choosing to lose extra money running these races. I would assume that they do better financially holding these races without fans than they would not having the races at all. But this is a major sacrifice, a major hit on revenue. But they're still going to run it. It's very important to the teams and riders to get this done. And let's not just look at it from a monetary perspective. We all know about the integrity of this championship. If Eli Tomac was crowned champ because he won Daytona in a race that no one knew would decide the championship, it would ring hollow for everyone. Eli winning the title, Ken Roczen not getting the title, and honestly, whoever's handing that #1 plate out. This is not the way anyone intends any championship to be decided. So for the long-term integrity of this, the record book, how it's going to look in the future, everyone wants to race. And then the money thing, unlocking that sponsorship budget, that's very important too. And we can ask the privateer side. I did. I interviewed privateer Cade Clason here on a Monday morning. He made it simple. He doesn't get paid if there aren't races. His team wasn't able to pay him because you get paid to race. And although people complain all the time about the purse for privateers in this sport, at least there is a purse. There are a lot of privateers that live off of the money they get for qualifying in the night show or qualifying for the main. There's also contingency and bonus money that you don't get if you don't race. There is a lot of friction as far as people getting paid, people that make their living in the racing industry through this, most notably riders who are your heroes, right? Well, it was going to be tough on all of them if this eventually didn't get going. So the fact that it is, you're not going to hear a lot of them complain that they're racing twice in a week. And who knows? There could be opportunity because I interviewed Ken Roczen today. Now, we know that Roczen was kind of on the forefront of I'm a little worried about the coronavirus thing. Remember, he did not want to sign autographs and have public sessions even before the Daytona Supercross, which is a few days before we even really knew what social distancing was all about. So when Cooper Webb had a big rant on Instagram about 3 weeks ago saying, I want to go racing, I hear there's some people that don't. Immediately, people started to think it's probably Ken Roczen who doesn't want to race. We know his immune system is probably compromised because of all those arm surgeries a few years ago. But I talked to Kenny today. He seems really excited about going racing. And he thinks there might be some opportunity. Look, everyone's going to be out of their routine. He's kind of enjoying the fact that they get to build an entirely different type of training and riding program, one that he's never had to do before. He enjoys that building process. And I think if you're a guy like Kenny, who's always kind of rolled with it, he's never been one to really enjoy being put in a training and riding box. You throw a little chaos, you just got to show up on race day and let the cards fall where they may. I think he's pretty well equipped to handle that. So I don't think Roczen's complaining. So there you go. You get riders at the top that are happy to be back. You get riders that are privateers that are happy to be back. It is not ideal for anyone. This is not the way it's supposed to go. The ideal thing was we would have gone to Indianapolis and Detroit and Seattle right after Daytona, and we would know who the champion is right now. My big fear with this rebuild process was that everyone would start getting nitpicky about, yeah, but this detail isn't right, or this detail favors someone else. It appears that cooler heads prevailed. Everyone realized there's one thing they all have in common. This is the job of a lot of people to hold races and to race in races and to participate in races. So they've all decided they want to go racing again. And that's what's going to happen starting May 31st and ending June 21st in Salt Lake City. And by the way, how does this affect motocross? Well, motocross had already, I have to stress, already moved their calendar to July 4th to accommodate these dates. So don't get mad at Supercross for running roughshod over the motocross calendar. They had already moved. The chances of motocross races being allowed to be held in May and June, probably pretty remote. Lucas Oil Pro Motocross Championship, that's run by MX Sports. That's a sister company to Racer X. They wanted extra time to allow their tracks and their promoters to be able to run their races too. So this could work out perfectly for everyone. Supercross still ends before motocross. There's still a weekend off between the two championships to kind of get back into outdoor mode. And hopefully this summer, we'll have some more racing too. This is all good news. We're race fans, right? Let's watch some racing.